So Brooks and Brad, you both recently conducted a study on fact-checking in Canadian journalism. Brad, I'll get started with you. Tell me about your study.
So Brooks and I interviewed a number of newsroom leaders and journalism educators, university, college instructors from across Canada to get their sense of where fact-checking fit into journalism today, especially kind of in the COVID environment where there was lots of misinformation and disinformation. And so we spoke to them to get a sense of their practices related to fact-checking, how it was coming up and being taught in classrooms and through the course of student studies, as well as the way it was being practiced in newsrooms in Canada. And what we found was, while COVID maybe necessarily didn't put fact-checking on people's radars in a way that it already wasn't there, it did kind of underscore the need for fact-checking as a practice in journalism.
And exactly as you just said, Brad, maybe this was the first time that some people were thinking about fact-checking in a big and tangible way. But Brooks, tell us, that was not really the beginning of fact-checking in Canada.
Fact-checking is not new in Canadian journalism or in journalism. Facts have always been very central to journalism. Sure, the first newspapers were very opinion focused, but that changed with wire services. And in the progressive era, you saw a lot of really great investigative journalism heroes like Nellie Bly and Exposing Great Truths. And there's a really great tradition of investigative and fact-based journalism here in Canada. But I do think COVID put a spotlight on it, and there has been some small initiatives around formalizing fact-checking, but it hasn't really institutionalized itself in Canada like we've seen in countries like the UK or the US with like Full Fact in the UK or PolitiFact or factcheck.org in the United States. But our research suggests that there is a real need to maybe institutionalize that and to have a full-time fact-checker in Canadian journalism.
And what is happening in Canadian journalism schools? How are teachers bringing those concepts into the classroom? What are we teaching journalism students?
Well, again, fact-checking isn't necessarily new, but I think what COVID really did was put on the radar the distinction between opinion and fact in a way that it hadn't been in recent times. So that was a big part of it. So when we talk about fact checking, we think of anti-hoc and post-hoc. And anti-hoc is the type of fact checking that goes into the making of a story before it's published. And that's really important, significant. It's always been a part of the journalistic process for sure. And then post-hoc is more what Brooks was referring to, organizations like PolitiFact that are verifying the statements of celebrities and influencers and people like that. And so this kind of put COVID, that is, put fact-checking of both orders on people's radar. And it's starting to be addressed, it's starting to be included in a more explicit and intentional way. And we're starting to even see some fact-checking courses being introduced in some journalism schools across the country.
Brooks, what did journalists and journalism students tell you about the effectiveness of fact-checking?
Well, they're concerned about it. There is this concern that, despite all the fact-checking that's going on in journalism, when I was a reporter, I was, tasked all the time with do a reality check on that, fact-check that, say, is the politician telling the truth or not? And there is this concern that despite all of this fact-checking and even institutionalized fact-checking like factcheck.org or Full Fact in the UK, that there's still all this misinformation, disinformation, bad actors spreading fake information. But journalism and the journalists we interviewed and the journalism educators we spoke with and the practicing journalists remain committed to it. They think, one journalist said, well, what else are we going to do? We have to do this, and it's important. And there is promising research, experimental research that suggests that, yes, fact checks in journalism might not change people's worldviews, like their ideology, but it can correct misinformation, and it can create a level playing field where people have the correct and verifiable information. So I think it's important that we keep doing this. And there's also some other really interesting and compelling research that suggests that maybe if we put warning labels on some social media, or we pre-bunk things, we anticipate what the disinformation is coming, and we tell our audiences, hey, we expect that there's going to be a lot of disinformation about this, but here's the correct information. Like if we head into, God forbid, another pandemic or something, we could be pre-bunking, sort of disinformation that might be concerning, vaccines, that sort of thing. So I think there is promising work out there that suggests that the work that journalists are doing is important and important for our democracy, so we should keep doing it.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.